Good afternoon and welcome to African Economy, your weekly dive into the policies shaping Nigeria and the continent's financial landscape. I am your host, Wangfonabase Water, and today we are analyzing the Central Bank of Nigeria's latest monetary policy stance. We also look at the world's top cocoa producer, Ivory Coast, plans to break into Africa's top 5 oil economies by 2035. We also look at Zimbabwe's plans to phase out dollar, targeting single currency by 2030. Also, Japan's consideration of backing South Africa's push to fix its energy sector. First off, let's start with the US dollar, how it is faring against various African currencies. Let's take a look at the US dollars against other African currencies. The US dollar against Nigerian naira exchange rates fell to 1,443 naira, that is 3.560, which is a percentage of 0.25. The US dollar South African the US dollar South against the South African rand is at 17 rand, which shows that the US Just for the breaking transmission there, the US dollars against Zambian kwacha is at 23 kwacha with a percentage of 0.67. The US dollars against the Egyptian pound is at 47 pound, which shows that the US dollars has fallen against the Egyptian pound at 0.1050 with a percentage of 0.22. The US dollars against the Algerian dinar is at 130 dinar per US dollar, which shows that the US dollars is fallen against the Algerian dinar at 0.006. Then the US dollars against the Angolan kwanza is at 920 kwanza, with a percentage of 0.07. With inflation still among the highest in Africa and the naira experiencing continued pressure, the CBN has held the monetary policy rate at 27%, along with a 45% cash reserve ratio and a 30% liquidity ratio. Joining me to unpack this is an economist who is also a financial analyst, Mr. Jeremiah James. He will tell us what this means for prices, lending and the wider economy. Thank you so much, Mr. Jeremiah, for joining us on the program. Hello, Mr. Jeremiah. Can you hear us?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. All right, let's get straight into it. Nigeria's inflation remains one of the highest on the continent, and the naira continues to face pressure compared to several African currencies. Against this backdrop, how do you assess the CBN's decision to maintain the monetary policy rate at 27%?
Sorry, I'm not getting.
What did you say? You didn't get us. Hello?
Okay, I think you're a little better now.
Okay, all right. So I was asking, how do you assess the CBN's decision to maintain the monetary policy rate at 27%?
Okay. So the decision to hold the monetary policy rate at 27% shows that the central bank of Nigeria is being cautious. Inflation is coming down, but enough to risk cutting rates too early. They wouldn't want to risk that. So, with a cash reserve ratio of about 45% and a liquidity ratio of 30%, banks have very limited funds to lend. Most deposits are tied up with the CBN, making loans, especially to CMEs, harder to get and more expensive. So the CBN can reduce without hurting growth, but it's a delicate balance. Losing too soon would trigger high inflation, weaken the naira, and then force stricter measures later. So I think the decision right now it's in order.
I cannot hear. What? Him now. Now let's move a bit deeper into how this decision affects the banking sector and as well as the overall lending conditions. With the CRR, that is the cash reserve ratio at 45% for commercial banks and the liquidity ratio unchanged at 30%. Can banks realistically lend to the economy? Hello, Mr. Jeremiah, can you hear us?
Okay, so in the coming months, we can expect rates to stay high, so lending conditions to remain a little tight, and then gradual easing if inflation and the currency stays stable. So businesses should plan for limited and then costly credits. So
We apologize for network glitches there. Let's go to other concerns in African economy. Japan is in discussions with South Africa to potentially provide additional funding for the reorganization of the country's energy sector, building on previous financial support for renewable energy product. Now, the new financing, if finalized, would complement up to $150 million already lent to the state-owned Development Bank of the Southern Africa for Japanese institutions late last year. That earlier support included millions from the Japan International Cooperation Agency and $50 million from Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Co., aimed at boosting South Africa's renewable energy capacity. Maki Kobayashi, a senior Japanese government spokeswoman, said in an interview on the sidelines of the Group of G20 summit in Johannesburg that they are also exploring additional financing to South Africa for energy sector reform. South Africa has been seeking billions in foreign investment as it transitions away from coal, which currently generates nearly 80% of the country's electricity. In recent years, the nation has faced intermittent power cuts that have disrupted industries and households, underscoring the urgency of energy sector reform. South Africa's Producer Price Index (PPI) inflation quickened for the fifth month to 2.9% in October 2025, the highest level since July 2024 from 2.3% in September, though below forecast of 3.1%. The main positive contributors to the headline PPI annual inflation rate were food, beverages and tobacco products at 3.1%, adding 0.9 percentage point, coke, petroleum, chemical, rubber and plastic product at 2.5% plus 0.5 point, and furniture and other manufacturing at 11.2% plus 0.5 point. On a monthly basis, producer prices edged down by 0.1% in October after a similar decrease in the prior month. Zambia's annual inflation rates decelerated further to 10.9% in November 2025, the lowest since August 2023, from 11.9% in the prior month. Now this marks the seventh consecutive period of slowing price growth, largely due to a stronger kwacha. Food inflation eased to 13.9% in November, down from 14.1% in October, while non-food price growth slowed to 6.6% from 8.7%. On a monthly basis, the consumer price index rose by 0.7% in November, the most in 7 months, after a 0.4% increase in the prior month. We will go on a break, and when we return, we will look at the concerns at the western part of the continent. Stay tuned. This has been African Economy, bringing you inside the matter in Africa's evolving financial landscape. My name is Wang von Water, and I have been the anchor of the program. Ivory Coast, the world's leading cocoa producer, is now setting its sight on becoming a major source in Africa's oil sector. The country's energy ministry forecast that by 2035, Ivory Coast could rank among the continent's top 5 oil producers, with crude output expected to reach at least 500,000 barrels per day and natural gas production hitting 1 million cubic feet per day, according to a report. This ambitious energy push reforms part of a broader national strategy to diversify revenue streams and reduce reliance on cocoa export, which have traditionally dominated the economy. Planning and Development Minister Kaba Niale highlighted that a strong increase in fossil fuel production could raise oil output to at least 200,000 barrels per day by 2027 to 2028, potentially accelerating economic growth to of US dollars within the next 3 years, according to the Deputy Central Bank Governor Innocent Mache. According to reports, the country has spent more than a decade attempting to restore a functional national currency after repeated failures triggered hyperinflation, erasing savings and forcing Zimbabwe to adopt the US dollar in 2009. Its most recent effort, the ZIG short for Zimbabwe Gold, was introduced in April 2024 and now accounts for roughly 40% of daily transactions. The currency has benefited from a surge in gold prices this year, with miners capitalizing on gold's 48% rally. Lastly, in African economy, Kenyan industrialist Narendra Ravo has inaugurated a 2 trillion shilling steel plant in Tororo, Uganda, expanding DEFCI Group's footprint beyond Kenya and reinforcing the company's role in East Africa's manufacturing sector. The investment, among the region's largest private industrial project in recent years, was launched at a high-profile ceremony attended by President Yoweri Museveni, President William Ruto, and President Paul Kagame. DEFCI Group, which began as a small steel shop in Nairobi in 1986, reflects a trajectory common among early Indian immigrants to East Africa who built successful industrial and commercial enterprises across the region. At the inauguration, Ravo said the Tororo plans will have a wide-reaching impact. And that brings us to the end of today's edition of African Economy. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to follow us across all of our social media channels at Spectrum TV. Remember, African Economy airs live every Tuesday and Thursday at 2:30 p.m. Until next time, keep thinking growth, keep thinking progress, because this is where Africa's economy speaks. I am Wang Fonabasi Walter. Goodbye, Africa.